Hello, everybody. My name is Michael Pytel with VASS. I'm joined today with my colleague Sheldon from VASS, who's representing customer experience today. And I'm here with a special guest from SAP, Ian McCallum. Ian, I wonder if you could give the audience a quick intro on yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Sheldon. I'm Ian McCallum, been with SAP for around 25 years now. I started working with the technical products and have evolved into working with AI and our customers needing solutions and help in that area. So I enjoy meeting with them very much, helping to understand their issues and how we might help to address those.
Yeah. That's for the audience and for Sheldon. Ian and I actually shared the stage at a couple SAP events. One where I was very surprised, and Ian was required to do some juggling before getting on stage. It was quite fun, but he handled it super well, and the audience really enjoyed that experience. And Sheldon, I wonder if you could give the audience a background on yourself, real quick.
Sure. I mean, I've been in the SAP space for like 20 plus years. And I've been doing mostly implementations in the CX space. I would say, between SAP Commerce, between Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Field Service Management, and so on. And now I basically lead the pre-sales team within VASS. And when it comes to the CX space.
Yeah, you say lead the pre-sales team, but you're also on the ground implementing. I've seen you.
Yes. Sadly, I'm still doing that.
And this whole podcast series is about lead to cash, right? The end-to-end process. And I think a lot of our worlds, for me and Sheldon, I come from more of an ERP background, right? So working in a data center, looking at an AS400, doing DB2 backups back in the early 2000s, running ERP systems. And we've always been separate from the CRM guys. The sales guys, the service guys, they were separate from the ERP guys.
Yeah, they always treated us like, oh, those are the CX guys. Let's not get near them, right? So I still feel that way when you go into a big project and you're in a room like we did a massive implementation with another SI. We were sitting down, right? They had all these different pods. This is back when we were still traveling before COVID happened. Right. And we were doing a huge project for, I think it was Firestone. And, they had different tables. And then you had, the material management table, the SD table, and then the little CX table, which we had, like 10 products. But it was all of us together in one table, right? So we always still feel treated that way. Like, those are the odd guys out.
No, but it's an integrated solution, which, Ian, I wanted to talk about these new cloud solutions, right? So we have cloud sales, cloud ERP. How do these cloud solutions give customers more agility? Right? And I'm coming from the perspective of installing ERP on-premise in my data center from 10, 20 years ago. Now I'm moving to a cloud ERP solution. Maybe just share some high-level examples for the audience of what type of agility can they expect by having these solutions?
The key to the agility is that you don't modify the application itself, right? You add extensions around that application. That's what lets you be agile because it reduces the amount of time to test, it reduces the technical debt, can reduce cost in some cases when you pull that over from one hosted situation to another, right? So in using that approach, right, having the extensions that are specific to you, specific to your processes, be outside the core, it allows you to be a lot more rapid with your innovation. It allows you to take the innovation that SAP provides, for example, in their CX products more rapidly. It reduces the amount of effort from heroic to sort of commonplace around any kind of upgrade, if you will. So,
yeah, I mean, staying standard, reducing the number of customizations we have enables us to use that API catalog from SAP, right? API.sap.com. Now I have all this catalog of APIs I can use, which I didn't have on premise.
No.
And it enables me to be more agile because that integration happens more quickly. Sheldon, you're coming from that CRM world where it was CRM on-prem integrating to ERP. When you're working on a project now, going with cloud ERP and cloud sales and service, that integration time, can you maybe share with the audience how much quicker is it? Is it easier?
I mean, compared to what we used to do before, where we had to build the integrations from scratch and, spend hours in figuring out how the mappings are going to be happening, et cetera. I mean, right now, SAP basically delivers a bunch of these integration flows that allow you to really speed up the process. So something that might take you or used to take us a couple of weeks. Now it's taking you a couple of days, right? So it's really speeding up the process and allowing us to integrate faster. I do want to ask something to Ian, though. When you asked the question before about the agility of what cloud ERP comes, right? What would you tell customers when they hear that and they say, okay, so how do I know how much am I going to spend, right, when I go and build something that is kind of like I'm trying to remember the name that we used in the ERP in the cloud ERP world. It's a side-by-side development, I think it's called.
Sidecar, side-by-side,
So
yeah.
I think a lot of it will be great for us to discuss a little bit of, a lot of customers like, okay, I like the side-by-side idea, but how do I estimate how much the cost is going to be to run these applications, right? So I think a lot of customers don't implement it because of that uncertainty. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. And I don't mean to make it sound as though, the clean core is some absolute goal, right? That's hard. And 100% of the customers I talk to say, I can't get there, potentially even ever, right? And so that's one of the factors that figures into that, Sheldon, is how much is this going to cost me? And it's harder because what we're suggesting in this case is not sort of a one and done. We're suggesting that you're continually assessing your business, understanding how it works, finding those places where some kind of optimization would help, right? And so the cost moves from what we've all seen in traditional Gantt chart, project-based, work breakdown structure elements and a cost at the end of that, right? To more trying to understand how each individual, I'll call them sprints, right? Innovation sprints, how each individual innovation sprint can impact and have a return for that particular update. So I would move more away from cost and try to focus on return, which again, that's scary because a cost is very easy to identify. A return, that's a risk, right? So it's a great question, and it's one I get all the time. It's going to factor in the pain, right, that you're facing. Can I not grow? Am I losing customers? Is there a big cost attached to that process? And what the potential outcome might be. And so then you're predicting, right? Again, you've moved away from that solid basis for understanding the impact. And so not a simple question, but a great one, because that's how you have to break through this I'll just move everything over kind of approach.
Yeah. For the audience, that's, the audience today, they're running either in S4 private cloud, but still using SAP GUI transactions, or they're looking at on-premise, moving to cloud ERP, and they're also looking at cloud sales and service. I wonder if you both could provide a comment on what we hear often, which is, I want to lift and shift. What are the side effects of that mentality, of that strategy of lift and shift? We know it reduces business risk because I have VA01 before and I have VA01 after, and it was a technical lift and shift. But what is the side effect of that? What are some potential side effects?
Yeah, I'll jump in, Sheldon.
No,
sorry.
Go ahead.
So I would say less that it reduces risk and it reduces the change management effort, right? And there is risk, there's opportunity cost in not moving forward with, innovation. If you're using the VA01 that SAP introduced in 2002, I'm certain that there are some capabilities that we've added since then, right? So that's kind of the first comment I would make is lifting and shifting eliminates the opportunity for updating and getting new innovation. The second is that I once ran a practice in which we focused on upgrades, right? I was shocked, really shocked to understand that approximately 25 to 50% of customizations never get used after the go live, right? And so if I'm bringing all of that with me, there's a cost to it. Not just a cost to host it, but a cost to test it and a cost to maintain it and potentially have to change it for new upgrades. And so I was really shocked by that. Those are the two costs that come to mind first. But Sheldon, you've probably seen more impactful costs, right?
I think the two that you have are, pretty up there. I mean, for me, it's also to add to what you said is the fact that a company like SAP is investing millions of dollars
Right.
in, gathering information from multiple industries, multiple, companies in order to create a better process, a better system. And they have invested that for, 10 years, 15 years. And you now have a solution that is, 20 years old. And now you finally have the chance to upgrade it, but you want to still use your processes from, way back then. And you're not really taking advantage of all this investigation and all this knowledge that, SAP has poured into their solution in order for you to adapt to, to new standards.
Right.
So when people tell me lift and shift, for me, it's like, okay, I understand that you're afraid of, the cost. You're afraid of, the change. That's why, like you said, OCM basically is reduced because there's not a lot of change, right?
Yeah.
You're going to use the same processes. But I think that you really need to focus on understanding the new processes and what you can benefit from them, because a lot of them implement stuff, like you said, that are completely custom. And now in the new solution, it might be something that is out of the box and you're able to leverage it and use it in a more business savvy or business or a better business outcome way, right? So that's for me, I think the biggest issue if you would decide to do a lift and shift.
One other SAP solution I wanted to highlight for the audience is Signavio and process insights, process intelligence. As we look at as is and to be, the best ways to look at to be is that best practice catalog from SAP, which is made available to SAP customers through Signavio and process insights. And I think it's an important point for the audience to know that there are partners in the ecosystem that have access to run process insights in Signavio on behalf of you for the customer.
Yeah.
And so that's where the partner community can assist these customers and allow. And VASS is part of this program. We have a Signavio instance when a customer is engaging or working on that project to get to S4, to get to a new solution. When engaging with VASS, they can actually leverage our Signavio license. We connect it to their ERP system. We can discover what they're doing, and then they can kind of have a visual overlay of what's new, what can I get to, where can I go. Because the Fiori app catalog is huge. There's thousands of apps, and mapping that to transaction codes is very tough.
That reminds me, Michael, of kind of, since we're talking about innovation, right? And this idea that we have at SAP of what we call the flywheel, and it's becoming pretty popular, right? And the idea is that I have these applications that generate data. I use the Business Data Cloud to analyze that data. I can then feed that into AI, be able to make better decisions. But to your point, I can take what I'm seeing and feed that back into the apps, and so that I can improve the applications. And so I get this virtuous circle going through data, apps, and AI. And that lets me, and Signavio is the cornerstone to that, right? But ultimately what that lets me do is just continually update and improve my business. If I'm stuck on, 2002 business processes, that becomes more difficult, right? Because AI wasn't really as much of a consideration back then. So now you see applications that are starting to think about AI as part of the process. And so that virtuous circle that you can get, we're seeing customers benefit from that even already.
So the second topic for today's discussion is all around how modernizing and having cloud ERP and cloud CX solutions can help us get to that single source of the truth, right? That customer 360, the vendor 360 that we've always wanted. I'm wondering, Ian, if you could spend a moment talking about BDC and how that brings together the data from ERP and sales and service, because I think for me, I think of an ERP as this monolithic application that I have dozens of users entering in data, and it's just a big transaction register.
Right.
Sales and service, I'm entering in service calls, I'm entering in leads, opportunities. It's a transaction register for sales and service teams, and we have ERP.
Right.
How does BDC support this vision to get to that customer 360, the vendor 360?
So the key is that I don't need to create interfaces. You were mentioning, Sheldon, that was costly. It used to be months, now maybe even down to days, but still I'm building interfaces. And once I've done that, I've created sort of a brittle connection between those two. What I want to be able to do is view that customer or that vendor through an entire 360. And I can do that if I collect and connect the data in the business data cloud, right? I create a single model for how that customer should be viewed. Now, I can get the best data from CX and the best data from ERP. You mentioned several steps in the process there, right? Collect that order, create the shipment, build them. Those all may be from different systems, but if I don't have a view of the customer that's consistent, it's hard to be able to go through those steps without some friction. This, in manufacturing especially, that becomes important because if I have, and many customers do, different systems for their MES, they have another system for their ERP, maybe an order management system. If the customer isn't the customer across those, if I don't share the data element, so I don't share a view so that I can create that whole process, there's a lot of friction, right? And that can result in delays. It can result in shipments being missed. It can result in a number of unhappy business outcomes. And so that one place to go is critical. And I saw this again and again when I was working with our high-tech customers, in which they would say, I need to make sure. And you would just see the customer balloon in each of these systems because I needed an element from ERP in my CX system and vice versa. And I didn't use it in CX. So the BDC, that's where I can create that single vision and use it for analysis, use it to ensure that, AI moves forward. All of that is a benefit of using BDC.
So Sheldon, you've been working on Sales and Service Cloud for multiple years, version 1, version 2. Reporting is part of every sales and service implementation. BDC released this year, ultimately, right? I know DataSphere has been out for a little bit longer, but BDC is a SKU that someone an audience member could purchase. What are your goals for BDC on your upcoming projects, Sheldon, as you're deploying sales and service for a company for leads, opportunities management, for service management? When you're scoping and planning S4 projects next year, what do you hope that BDC can bring to the table for your customers that you're implementing?
So most of the time when we look at Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, and you look at the reporting capabilities of those tools, the reporting capabilities only allowed you to, within those tools, by the way, because of course you can extract the data, but if you looked at the reporting capabilities within those tools, you were only able to use the data within that system, right? Within sales or service. With BDC now, what it's allowing us to do is that very easily extracting that data and allowing us to use it in SAP Analytics Cloud together with data from the backend, right? And because the data models of SAP are already available within BDC, the system understands it, it's easier for us to be able to look at holistically the end-to-end process and understand and create reports for it. Instead of only focusing on, let's say, leads and opportunities and quotes, you're able to go through the whole process and look at, what is the purchasing decisions that were made based on, that pipeline that you had, right? Which is something that we could have done before, but I think doing it with BDC now, it's going to be easier. Mm-hmm. That's what I feel that it's going to be like the next area when it comes to the reporting on the Sales Cloud and Service Cloud functionalities. Yeah.
I think for a long time, our customers were trying to build the customer 360 in the CRM, right? And what that required us to do was move ERP data into the CRM system. So we needed to move invoice history, we needed to move order history into the CRM, which was integration work. It was data replication, and BDC allows us to bring that data together and have that total view. As an example, like you said, looking at pipeline to actuals. And so at a manufacturer that we're supporting in Georgia today, they're moving to cloud ERP, they're moving to cloud sales and service, and their goal is to get to that report where they can hold their sales team accountable to, you said we all agree the pipeline's here, you have all these opportunities, you closed the deal. Did the closed one deal turn into an invoice? because I think a lot of times, remember at VASS, we're an SAP customer. I don't know if you knew that. So we're an SAP customer, and there's a little bit of a disconnect, on the Salesforce side, an opportunity, and then linking it back to the actual invoice that was signed and executed and built.
Not uncommon.
Yeah, it's it's a new world. I'm super excited for BDC. I'm super excited that it provides maximum flexibility in that talking about, there are customers run more than just SAP solutions. It's like me at my house. I have my Hulu subscription, my Netflix subscription, my HBO Max subscription. Right. We have different apps out there, and BDC is an open platform to do so. I want to talk about, or for the audience, I'm ready to keep them moving down this path. So we've talked a little bit about legacy ERP and how moving to cloud ERP, cloud CX gives them a little bit more agility. Introducing BDC in the conversation allows us to synchronize or have a single pane of glass into the data, whether that's SAP or not. BDC is an open platform. But moving forward, I want to talk about for each audience member that's listening today, they have a different path. They're on a different version. They may have HubSpot. They may have Salesforce.com. They may have SAP ERP. They may be on Jenny Edwards, and they're looking at coming to SAP. In each of your opinions, I'd love to know balancing technical risk and business risk, right? New feature overload, especially with Joule and AI being introduced into the conversation. What is your advice to an IT manager, or a project manager, or a PMO on balancing technical risk and business risk? It's a tough question.
It is. And when I worked with some systems integration partners many years ago, really the focus was always, how much can I stuff into a single go live? What can I get into the big bang, we called it, right? And there was about the same time a lot of discussion and interest in DevOps, right? Which is kind of the polar opposite, where everything is updated all the time. You look at companies like Netflix, who is thousands of updates a day. And you compare that with, the 1 or 2 years that it would take to update an SAP system. And folks started to think, I really need to try to bring those two together. Ideally, it's smaller, more focused improvements that are going to work. Now, there'll be something like throwaway work, right? If I have to, as an intermediate step, build an interface between systems because I'm only using part of ERP or part of CX and I'm continuing to use those two, that's an impediment, right? Right there, I start to get a lot of pushback and, we don't want to use that for 3 or 6 months and then, throw it away. But again, I come back to that value and that return view where if I'm solving a problem, if I'm reducing friction, I'm able to see pipeline to invoices, even just for that, then there's value, right? And you can begin to look at the value, kind of characterize that value, and then compare that to the cost of creating that smaller, focused win. That's a very radical idea, right? Most of the CIOs that I talk to have grown up with Big Bang. They're comfortable with it. It's the same as lift and shift. They know what's going to happen with that. And so you really have to build that business case for the good, the good transition before you can talk to them, because otherwise they'll revert to what they know.
And it's interesting that you say that, because in the CX world, right, you have customers with CRM on-prem. And we've had situations where, we want to get rid of CRM on-prem. CRM on-prem had a lot of functionalities. It had marketing, it had service, it had sales, right? It had so many things. And then in several of our customers, we took the approach, that you're saying, where we're not going to replace a big bang right away. And we started saying, okay, let's look at what's important. Okay, it's important for you to move the sales piece because you really want to take advantage of the new capabilities of the solution. Okay, let's move sales and let's leave everything still in CRM. And then we slowly move and shift. One of our customers recently, they are using CRM on-prem and they moved to Sales Cloud V2. and their quoting functionality is extremely complex.
Okay.
So they were like, well, we want to get away from CRM Prem because of all the different situations that are happening with the tool, the deadlines, et cetera. And they're like, well, but the complexity of our quoting is, how can we move it? And then what we said is, well, let's just move leads and opportunities,
Okay.
right? Let's just do the little pieces. Let's the small part.
Excellent.
And that's what we did. And then we integrated that with the quoting in CRM. And now we're going to the next phase, which is, okay, we were able to get this far with leads and opportunities. Now let's move from, opportunities to quotes on the Sales Cloud V2 solution. And that approach for me allows you, going back to where we were saying before, allows you to really dig into the capabilities of the new solution and really take the time to figure out what do you want to adapt from your process into the standard, instead of, doing a big bang and just going crazy, into bringing in a bunch of functionality that you probably don't need, right? So those are things that we try to do when we do implementations, but it's always tough. I mean, we also have customers that just say, no, we want to do big bang, and you try to explain to them why it's not going to be the best for them, but ultimately you end up caving in, right? So
probably get a sort of virtuous cycle with change management too, right? There's less change management involved, and that I used to think of projects as kind of technical work. No, it's change management work with a little bit of technology attached to it. And so managing OCM is huge, and that's got to be helpful to them, I would think.
Yeah. No, and I also think that when it comes to data migration, right?
Oh, there you go.
People are afraid, if I have a system where, I don't do a big bang, I have to figure out how am I going to do this data migration with, this old system, the new system, the IDs, whatever it is. And I think there is a fear of that. And that's why they go ahead and they decide to go with a potential big bang approach, because they're like, we just migrate all the data to the new systems and we're going to be okay.
Right.
And not necessarily.
Sure.
Right. So I think that the approach of going step by step is, for me, in my opinion, a better approach, because it really gives you that time to really think things through and adapt to the new solutions that are out there.
Right.
So if I was to summarize for the audience, it's sort of identifying innovation targets, developing sort of innovation teams or sprints, adopting more of a startup mentality, and attacking individual areas. Because these cloud solutions are so integratable, they're so open, and we can move things, and we can have processes start in one and end in another. So because of that agility and those cloud-based capabilities, it enables me to just focus on an innovation target and really hyper-focus on sales or service or accounts payable, and innovate. Now, Sheldon, I wanted to ask you, as customers are looking, moving to Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Field Service Management, in that CX space, what are the accelerators that you wish customers would think about? For me, in my world, in the ERP world, it's the best practices repository that SAP has provided, Signavio, and all of the process models that are already there. SAP provides a tremendous amount of accelerators for us to have best practice. Actually, in S4, we have a best practices system where we can get template business processes end to end and do a conference room pilot with this. But I'm unaware of, or hoping you can educate us on, in the CX world, what are some of the accelerators that you see that get you excited, that's the first thing you share with a customer? Did you guys know that you have this capability in sales and service?
I mean, within the CX world, Process Navigator is available for us. Now, there are also scope items, and the processes defined there are really good, right? For instance, for me, the biggest advantage of using those solutions is that it really helps you define, or kind of like educate your customer as you're going through that process, right? Now, when it comes to the different solutions of Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, and so on, most of them, when we go and do an implementation, if a customer already wants to follow those processes, for us, it's just configuration, right? the kicker or the complexity comes when a customer says, no, but that process, I don't want it, right? And when it comes to that, that's where, the complexity of the implementation starts. So when you look at which accelerators you have, well, of course, you have the different accelerators when it comes to the types of integrations. If you want to integrate with ERP, what you want to integrate with other SAP solutions, there's different capabilities available within api.sap.com. But there is also information within Signavio that allows you to define what the process should be when it comes to your industry, right? And that's what we use. So that's what we typically look when we do an implementation in the CX space.
Ian, question for you. Same question. What are the accelerators customers might be forgetting? And those could be accelerators for Joule. They could be accelerators for BDC or for S4. When you're engaging with a customer, when you say, "Did you know?" What typically follows that statement when you're talking to a customer?
You mentioned Joule, right, and Joule agents, and that's a little bit of vision, right? It's a little bit in the future, but that's another area where we'll deliver a lot out of the box. We'll deliver the capability to get insight into ERP and CX directly through Joule. We'll deliver the capabilities around agents for CX and ERP out of the box. They'll be extendable, of course. You can add your own capabilities to Joule and create new agents. That's great, right? But the accelerator is the key there. Sheldon mentioned api.sap.com. Great place to go for accelerators around connecting SAP systems. A little bit further down the line, we're looking to ensure that the Joule agent framework is A2A compliant and MCP, that Model Context Protocol compliant. And so again, there'll be standards for connecting to SAP AIs, to connecting to other tools that might be useful for agents, and then having those agents interoperate. So not just today, right, what we're delivering today, those accelerators, but we're also kind of looking a little bit into the future around what customers will want and what customers will need to be able to build solutions that span SAP and non-SAP solutions, or even just SAP solutions, right?
The next topic I had, so we've talked about the monolithic legacy ERP, moving to cloud, getting agility, moving with Sales and Service Cloud, ERP Cloud, having Customer 360 with BDC. As practitioners, we've all three been on projects many times over the years. Is there a path? The audience member that's listening today, they're bought in. They're not going to do lift and shift. They're going to selectively innovate in the sales area. They're going to activate new functionality in Service Cloud or Sales Cloud, new functionality for Fiori apps in ERP, and maybe even activate a sales agent. Is there a path? Is there a path or a tool or a framework that reduces testing effort? This is kind of an ugly answer. Yeah. Testing is terrible. I hate it. I hate writing test scripts. I hate executing my test scripts. I hate the screenshots, especially when I'm in an FDA regulated environment.
For sure. Yeah.
It's the worst.
Yeah.
Is there any advice, or do customers just need to accept testing is tough and it's hard and I need to do it? Are there any accelerators that you gentlemen can share that might help ease the pain or reduce the fear about testing as I'm upgrading and innovating?
So first and foremost, adopting the approach of a clean core and then extending outside of that is going to have immediate impact on the amount of testing, right? And what you'll be able to do is create regression tests for the core because that's not changing. Test the extensions separately, and that should cut down on the amount of effort. But ultimately, there has to be some testing, right? And so, as you said, no one likes to do it, but the key is to try to minimize that testing, eliminate those extensions that I mentioned earlier aren't being used anymore. And so you really start to clean it up a lot. That in and of itself reduces the amount of effort that you have to take to test. I worked with a customer, this is a good 6 or 7 years ago, that had been unable to update their ECC system to S4 because they had 18 years worth of extensions and customizations that they really couldn't cope with. They took 7 months to go through all their testing. Just enormous numbers, tens of thousands of steps in that. And what we saw when they went to S/4HANA, right, was they lifted and shifted. We weren't able to convince them. But ultimately, they did start to begin to make this move, right? And so the amount of testing that they could automate, which is one of the biggest ways to reduce that effort, the amount of testing that they automate gradually increased over time. So they took the advice eventually, but that's where I see the most impact. And Sheldon, what do you see when?
I mean, for us, and I would say commerce is one of the biggest tools that we really need to do automated testing.
Right.
We use products like Selenium. I'm trying to remember others that we've used. We had a customer that they are in the manufacturing industry. They create these huge cranes, and when we did the SAP Commerce implementation, they decided to also include within the commerce solution all the service capabilities. So you're able to go in and look at the cranes and the status of the cranes, and you're able to create a ticket against it. It had IoT information. So very complex project that has a ton of capabilities that are not native to SAP Commerce. And for us to be able to test that, I mean, we had to create our own they didn't want to buy, this particular customer did not want to buy any other third-party tool. We ended up creating our own framework in order for us to do automated testing. But people forget, right, that when you do automated testing, every change that you make in your application potentially impacts the automated test that you have created. Right. So automated testing, although it's great, right, people need to understand that it's an investment as well, right? Yes, it's going to allow you to speed up the process, but you need to also invest in making sure that those scripts get updated as new features and functions are there. Maybe you need to add additional data, right? But mostly on the SAP Commerce side is where we see, that investment need, especially when you're doing a lot of customizations. If we're going with something more standard, like you were saying, Ian, I think it's not that critical, right? Because the processes are standard processes. SAP has tested the system. You're only testing, if the data is correct, right? But when you're really doing those large customizations into the tools, that's where we really see the need of an automated testing tool.
Well, I think you and I don't work together a ton because, again, we keep the CX people at their children's table at Thanksgiving. But on the Cloud ERP world, I don't know if you knew this, we have our own test automation tool inside of Cloud ERP. It's an amazing tool, and a lot of customers don't realize it. So if you go to S/4HANA Private Cloud, you're not going to get the cool test automation tool. But if you go to S/4HANA Public Cloud, we actually have our own built into the application test data generation and test automation directly in Cloud ERP. So we're luckier on the Cloud ERP side. And hopefully someday, SAP will extend that over to the CX solutions. But for the audience, I think testing is painful. It is a fact of life. And I think, Sheldon, you made a good point, which is test management needs to be part of your change management process.
100%.
A lot of times I see customers, they're going through the motions of change management, the transport moving forward, configuration moving forward. Two things I think they miss out on a lot. One, yes, test script updates. And two, upgrading sort of an integration catalog. Recently, I've been working with a couple customers moving to S4. And when it comes time to think about regression testing all their interfaces, they don't have all the interfaces documented. And it's a hard step. It's a hard thing to do. And change control is where you capture that. If this change request is moving forward, is it updating? Is there an integration? Yes. Is it in the integration catalog? Yes or no? And then also your test scripts, right? Test automation, making sure that's part of that change control management.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. We talked earlier about Signavio, right? I kind of, when you're navigating, right, if you want to get someplace, you need to know where you are. And so understanding your landscape is key to being able to even perform those, focused updates. LeanIX is what we offer for customers to be able to automate the collection of their landscape and the inventory of the systems and hardware. And so if it's not Lean IX, there are other tools available, I'm sure, but that's critical, right? You can't, if you don't know your interfaces, or how they're built, it's going to be hard to move forward.
Yeah. There's that go live moment where you say, "Hey, did anybody work on that lockbox file to the bank? Did we document that? It's not running anymore."
Who tested that?
Yeah, who tested that? So for the audience, in summary, just talking about today, we talked about that legacy ERP migration and how it gives us agility to moving to cloud solutions. The how BDC supports that customer 360 or can. It truly is an open platform. I think SAP deserves kudos in building a business data cloud in such an open way, especially with the announcements around Snowflake and BigQuery and being able to integrate these other solutions. I'm excited to get started on BDC projects, honestly. Yeah. In terms of moving forward, we also talked about today lift and shift and how, yes, it is from an organizational change management the easiest path, but you're missing out on a lot of innovation. And our advice was to create sort of innovation teams, innovation focus areas, specific initiatives over 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, focused on an area and trying to get some innovation deployed. Because that's ultimately, at the end of the day, it's what's going to keep your users excited about using the system. I worked in a shipping department. I had my tab order in the shipping transactions figured out, so I knew how to hit tab, enter data, tab, enter data, and hit save, right? That was my routine. And we get comfortable in SAP GUI. So identifying those innovation targets where we can deploy Fiori apps, I think, is important advice. We talked about testing. In terms of this journey for everybody to be more agile, right? That's the theme of today's episode. Any closing thoughts before we wrap up today, gentlemen?
Just one, maybe. You mentioned the need to identify those areas and to be able to make targeted improvements, right? Gonna need to have folks that understand the business processes really well, right? That's a key component to the change management. They know where the pain is. They know why orders aren't being converted into invoices, for example. And that's critical, right? The second part is this AI topic is pretty popular, I'm told. And so there needs to be at least some element of the team that's good at identifying where AI can fit into the process. So instead of saying, how can I use AI? You look at the process, identify the areas where you want to improve, where there are issues, and have an expert that says, oh, I know how AI could help in that case. And that's a little bit of a flip from I think the way folks are looking at it now. And I understand, right? There's a lot of interest in AI, and so it's being driven from the top. How are we using AI? How's AI improving our business? I would say take that same approach that we've been suggesting, right? Start with the business problem, and then have someone on the team that knows AI, right? That can layer on top of that, whether a machine learning model might help, whether generative AI is something that they could leverage in this case. So those only items I would add, because we've really kind of drained the swamp here this morning. So,
Sheldon, any closing thoughts?
I think that Ian basically said one of the things that we were missing. So no additional closing thoughts.
You're right. There is additional person in the room now on a work stream.
Yeah.
And that person in the room on the work stream is the AI, the person that's knowledgeable of what AI is good at, not good at, what's a good use case for a dual skill, which is different than a dual agent.
Right.
And can layer in that business process. How is AI supporting this? I imagine for you, Sheldon, you're sitting in a room and a customer's walking through their lead to opportunity process. Do you agree you need to have a sort of an AI person in the room now?
I would say yes, you do. But the problem is that, like Ian was saying, I mean, people have this buzzword, AI, we need to use it. But they don't know how.
Right.
They don't know, what in their business process can, it would make sense to use it, and where it should be supported. And I think you really need to, like you were saying, you really need to look down in your process and see the different pain points that you have, and then look, okay, is this really a good thing or a good problem that I can solve with AI? Because not everything can be solved with AI, right? That's something that people need to be educated on. People think that, oh, we can solve everything with AI. That's not necessarily the case. Some things are process related problems where you have to fix the process. Other things might be, some things that you are able to solve with AI. And being able to have that conversation internally within your company and understanding all those different pain points, and then being able to determine, what is the best solution for it. I think that's definitely something that I completely agree with you, Ian.
Yeah. You don't want to go after a nail with a sledgehammer, right?
You don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Sheldon, thank you as always for being my co-host today. And Ian, thank you so much for being our special guest.
Oh.
Always a joy to talk to you.
Yeah, delightful. Thank you very much, Michael. Thank you, Sheldon.
No, thank you. Thanks for coming.
You bet.